What's up, fellow grounded travelers? How is everybody doing tonight? It's Eliz and Derek, and we're super excited to have everybody on our live feed. I wrote a few messages in the live chat for everybody before this started. So once you guys are all on, just say a quick hi, tell us where you are right now, and also just tell us what your favorite foreign cuisine is. We've been experimenting and eating different foreign cuisines this week, I'd say. Actually, Derek has mostly been doing the experimenting. Anyway, so we haven't seen anybody join just yet, but I think there's some people on. So when you do jump on, let us know so we can see who we're chatting with.
Yeah, but maybe if we wanted to start with what we're drinking, I have a very refreshing mint tea.
Yes, and I'm drinking a caramel apple bedtime tea, even though it's definitely not bedtime. Hey,
Almost.
Mark Finley, thanks so much for joining this week.
Mark,
it's so
how you
great
doing?
to see you again, 2 nights in a row. So welcome to our live streams. They'll probably be a little bit familiar to what you're used to in Walter's world, because we definitely thought that they do something really cool, and we wanted to share that with our community over here on Means to Travel as well. So welcome. We're super pleased that you joined.
Yeah. We're asking people right now just, favorite foreign cuisine or cuisines, I guess, or international cuisine or what have you.
Yeah.
Tonight we had sushi from one of our local favorite delivery places. Really trying to help out some of the local businesses and, order in when we can, which is great.
Earlier this week, we also had Thai food that we ordered in as well from our favorite place here in Chicago that does Thai food in our neighborhood, Seli Kori. And Derek's also been experimenting with a lot of French recipes too lately, including French fries, which debatable whether those are actually French.
That was not a French recipe. That was definitely Belgian or Flemish fries. We fry them twice, which is delicious. First time to cook them through, and the second time to get them nice and crisp on the outside. I think they turned out pretty nice. Did quite a bit of baking actually this week. So I baked 2 different types of French bread. I did French baguette, which I baked yesterday, and earlier this week I baked a easier French loaf recipe that you can kind of do in one day, 2 hours I think.
Great, there's a few more people on, but just to finish off what Mark Finley's saying, he's saying he's never actually been overseas, but was hoping to go to Europe this summer, so fingers crossed for you, my man.
Yeah.
But love jerk chicken in Jamaica. There's actually a place here where we live in Chicago that the restaurant is just called Jerk. And it's Jamaican cuisine, but we still haven't been there yet. We really need to hit that up because we definitely love a lot of different types of Caribbean food, actually.
Yeah. I know Ruth and Al have been to Jamaica, so maybe they've had jerk chicken while they were out there.
That's
I
true.
don't know. Okay, what else do we got? Ruth, hey, Eliz and Derek, have you tried Dutch pastry? I don't know. Have you tried Dutch?
We tried a lot of Dutch foods, 3 weeks ago when we were there.
I had stroopwafel.
Yeah, there was stroopwafel. There
a lot
was
of fried stuff.
What was
Waffle.
the breakfast? I mean, the breakfast pastries at our hotel were.
We had crepes. We had
That's
pancakes. We had a lot of kinds of pastries. I don't know.
Yeah. Welcome, Walter's World, Jocelyn and Mark. Great to see you guys on here. This is exciting for you to join us.
Yeah.
So
quick though, Alan, hello. I'm hoping for some good Mexican food in Tucson next time we're there.
Totally.
Yes, definitely. I would say, in Tucson, my favorite place is El Charro.
Yeah, and Jocelyn, I believe, spent some time growing up in Tucson, so maybe she can weigh in as well. But El Charro, the one downtown Tucson, is the original location and phenomenal food. But there's one up north in Catalina Foothills now too.
Yeah, I remember the first time I was in Tucson, I was Googling, what to get in Tucson, like what is the food to eat, and USA Today or something like that had put out their list of top 50 dishes in the world or in the country to try, and one of them was the carne seca chimichanga at El Charro. So it was one of the top 50. And I mean,
the carne seca you can see in the back, like literally drying. Sorry, I'll finish.
I was just gonna say the chimichanga was like massive. Like I'm not a small guy, but even I was like, oh my god, that was a lot of food. And yeah, carne seca is an interesting type of food. Sonoran, is that right?
Yeah. Well, I believe it's
From that
definitely
part of the
Sonoran. Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
But it's very dried meat, very chewy, almost like a jerky, I'd say. Very, very flavorful, but not to everybody's taste. But
Yeah,
if you're
so
in
where
Tucson, I highly recommend it.
Derek's part Mexican, and where his family is from in Mexico is a slightly different cuisine, different
Very
spices.
different. Very
Yeah.
different. My father was not a fan of carne seca, but he doesn't like change. So what can
I'm
I
waiting
say?
for him to like jump on and weigh in on that and just be like, no, no carne seca here.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think we're missing a few chats here now. But let's see, let's catch up. Walter's World loved the food in Jamaica. Well, I caught, I think, one of your don'ts of Jamaica videos, but I'll need to check out some of the food videos too. My parents, who are on this chat, just went to Jamaica last year, and I wish I could have connected them with your videos before they went, because they could have had some great recommendations from you guys. Jocelyn saying all the Jamaican foods. That's amazing. Yeah. We need to definitely hit up the restaurant Jerk, which as I was saying before, I think a few people joined, is here in Chicago, and it's Jamaican food. It's right.
Something like Chicago.
Yeah, it's
on.
It's off of Chicago and Halstead. For anybody who's familiar with this city.
Yeah, maybe we can order that next week for takeout or something like that. We can go pick it up.
Yeah, we definitely are trying to support all these local businesses. I was reading a Wall Street Journal article featuring a restaurant that's in our neighborhood called Etta, and the chef runs 2 restaurants here in the city, and was talking about just how business had to pivot so rapidly, and things are, it's just like everywhere, kind of a little bit harder.
So Walter's World is saying the street food and quick foods are great in the Netherlands. Glad to be on. Show some love. Thank you very much for joining. I'd say that the quick foods in the Netherlands are great. I enjoyed. We did the Albert Kuip market.
Yes, which is like one of the biggest street markets in.
It claims to be like
Europe.
one of the largest outdoor open air street markets, I guess, in Europe. I don't know. It's big. But
actually,
it's
Walter's World buddy Dutchified is who we followed to that location.
Yeah. Actually, we used a lot of Dutchified's recommendations while we were there in terms of where to go to, including kind of a more modern food hall that's right there off of the main square in Amsterdam. That's pretty cool. It's on like the 3rd floor. It has some decent views of kind of the main square area, and a lot of good foods and stuff. Diversity, in terms of there was Indonesian food, there was sushi, there was Chinese food, dim sum places, kind of everything. There's Greek as well, Jocelyn, which we had some. What do we have? We had it's Amsterdam, so they had to fry everything. So we had fried artichoke actually, which was delicious from the Greek restaurant. But yeah, no, that was a fun time, and we're very lucky to have found Dutchified, so we could kind of know where to go, what to try, and
Mark and
Jocelyn
are saying, Mark's saying Dutchified is one of my best buddies. He is awesome, and Jocelyn's saying he is a great guy. Took us to some really fun places off the beaten path. I'm jealous. We actually were briefly Instagram messaging with him, and he has a great channel. It's literally called Dutchified for anybody heading to the Netherlands at some point in the future and wants some insider scoop. But we were briefly messaging with him on Instagram before we went, but because of the coronavirus starting to get a little bit hotter right before, or I guess during our time there, we didn't want to meet up with anyone on this trip. So we'll just have to go back.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want to say a quick hi. So I saw that Megan Morris is on. Hi, so glad you're back.
Hey,
This
Megan.
is great to have you on again. And Jamie, welcome. I'm not sure if you've been on one of our chats yet, but definitely chime in because I know that our sister-in-law Jamie, has traveled all over the world too.
Quite extensively. All over Asia and whatnot, which is really cool.
Africa,
yeah. Carne seca can be an acquired taste. I agree, Mark. Does Portillo's in Chicago count as travel food if you're from Texas? Sure, why not?
Yes, I definitely think so. So, just so everybody's aware, I grew up in the Chicago suburbs. I have a lot of family out in Tucson, though, and we got married in Tucson, which is why we're so familiar. And Derek grew up in Indiana, so we are Portillo's natives, and Derek's dad, who I'm still kind of waiting to finally jump on this live chat, is a huge fan of Portillo's roast beef.
Well, yeah, he's just a fan of Italian beef generally. He was he did restaurant management for a while. Hey, Darlene's on.
Oh, Darlene. So Darlene is Derek's mom, and we were just talking about you guys and your Portillo's fandom. So feel free to chime in at any point.
Well, he has, it's funny because they don't live here in Chicago. They live more close to Cincinnati, and they were saying that they wanted one of my dad's Christmas gift items was Al's Beef, a gift card to Al's Beef. So. I don't know, maybe he's more of an Al's Beef fan. But yeah, no, he's a big fan of Italian beef, and it's something that's kind of very, I think, Chicagoan. It's not everywhere. And he kind of took it with him to Indianapolis when he, was managing a restaurant down there. It became a big hit item in his store. He ran a restaurant called Ground Round, which was kind of like a, fast casual type place. It was pretty great.
So I gotta catch up here. Jocelyn, there's a place, so Mark Finley's saying there's a place here that has a really good gyro. Tell me if I'm pronouncing that wrong, but we always said gyro. But the best I've ever had is in Arlington, Virginia, near the Army base. Oh, no kidding. I'm curious if there's a lot of Greek population over there.
So I will say the best gyro that I've ever had.
Trojan horse in Bloomington.
Yes. Well, you stole my thunder.
Oh no, I'm so sorry.
So the best one in my mind is the Trojan horse in Bloomington, Indiana, and that's just because it holds a very special place to me and my family. That it's been around forever, and
it's a really cool building too. Just the restaurant is in a very old time.
It's on like a corner. It's kind of old looking. It just has booths. I don't think it can really fit more than like 4 people. You can't go there with like a giant party or anything like that. It's kind of like, I think it's just like a really long hallway with booths on one side and then a very narrow hallway. But they have delicious gyros. They have really good baklava, and they have a baklava ice cream that they make, which is done with, they fold their own fresh baked baklava into the ice cream. So it's awesome. Highly recommend it. If you have a sweet tooth.
So I just want to catch up. So Jamie is saying that I believe she was talking about Trojan horse has changed its owners and it's not as good anymore, which that is devastating news. And your family's agreeing though that Trojan horse is awesome, and Mark from Walter's World is obviously an Illini fan because he is a professor at University of Illinois, which is where everybody in my family went to school except for me. So I think you're in good company, Mark, when it comes to the Armstrongs.
Okay, well, I will say there's a lot of reasons to visit Bloomington. It's a beautiful campus. It really is.
We actually partnered with Visit Bloomington, the tourism board, last May.
We actually have a video on why you might want to go to Bloomington, so go check that one out.
They brought us down there, and we went around our old stomping ground and showed everybody some different really cool spots around the city because there's a lot of ethnic restaurants there and other things to do besides be it Indiana University.
I mean, that's one of the things about Bloomington is that the breadth of the ethnic restaurant scene is pretty diverse. Everything from the the usuals like Chinese, Thai food, Mexican, Greek, great Italian food, and then also a little bit more further afield with things like what's that one? Snow Lion or whatever.
By the way, Al, you are correct.
Croatian, it's all great.
Trojan Horse was not featured in our Bloomington video. So we'll just have to make another one when we can all travel again.
We had limited time. So the way that worked, and it was pretty cool because, you know, they gave us kind of a list of places that they partner with and Mark, yeah, we went to IU. That's where we actually met.
Yeah.
The first meal that we actually ever had together was at the Trojan Horse because I helped her and her parents move her into her dorm, and as a thank you, they took them all out to the Trojan Horse.
So Derek and I met when we were 18 years old at freshman orientation at Indiana University for the Business Honors Program. And we started dating during Welcome Week, officially. So we've been
together. She got me quick.
Since 2006. But yes.
But the whole thing that
very cute story, I know.
Yeah. So what I was trying to say though was that, you know, when we went to Bloomington for this whole Visit Bloomington thing, the way it kind of worked was, you know, we got accommodations at one of the hotels there that we'd never stayed at before, which was actually kind of cool. It was like a home to stay or something like that, where it had more of a, you know, longer term feel. I think there's like a little kitchen in the unit, so if you wanted to cook your own food, you could. And then they gave us some like coupons for local places that they partner with, so we could go try some different foods in the area. And while it wasn't all paid for, you know, we could at least get some discounts, which was kind of cool. And what it allowed us to do was try some places that we might not have tried as students, which was pretty cool, as well as go to some newer places that weren't even around when we went to school there, you know, 10 plus years ago. So, you know, we got to go to a place like, there's a great Mexican place right on the square. There's a beautiful square. We went to a coffee place that we had never tried before that had really cool, interesting drinks and whatnot.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. So Jocelyn, there is a Bloomington, Illinois, and I totally understand why you would have gotten confused because we didn't clarify. But Indiana University is in Bloomington, Indiana, which I believe is actually a lot larger than Bloomington, Illinois. I'm not sure though. I've never been to Bloomington, Illinois. I think that's where the regional airport that you guys fly out of is typically, though. Correct me if I'm wrong. So anyway, I don't know the answer about Ethiopian food options. The only time we've really...
In Chicago, I know there are good Ethiopian food places. I'm not sure if you're talking about here or in Bloomington. There might be Ethiopian food places in Bloomington. I know that it has quite a diverse array. I get Turkish food, you can get a bunch of different things.
Yeah. And then Matt is chiming in here. Hi, Matt. Good to see you on.
What up,
I'm really glad that you could make it today. And then Little Zagreb is a good steakhouse in Bloomington, Indiana as well. And that is Croatian.
Yeah, it's a Croatian steakhouse. It's funny because you walk in and you wouldn't imagine that this is the best steakhouse in Bloomington. It's definitely not the fanciest, but I'd say it's the best. And because I go back to Bloomington quite a bit for recruiting for my job, I get to go to a number of good restaurants in Bloomington, and I've tried a number of different steakhouses, and there's probably two really, really good ones that I'd highly recommend. One of them is Scholar's Inn, which is pretty cool. It's in like an old house. They have a really good filet mignon that comes with macaroni. It comes on a bed of macaroni and cheese, which is, I mean, come on. Who doesn't love mac and cheese? So that's good, but I'd say the best steak is definitely looking at the the cuts of steak at Little Zagreb's. And you walk in and it's like red and white checkered cloths over the table. Kind of looks like a little bit of a dive.
Super old school looking.
Super old school. Every steak comes with
You're
a
like,
potato.
Did I just go back to the 1970s?
Yeah, like potato and rolls, But then you cut into the steak and it's like beautifully marbled, delicious. You're not going there for the filet mignon. You're going there for like the prime, the T-bone or whatever. It's delicious.
And Mark, I agree, mac and cheese is the absolute best, but we had a lesson learned, I don't know, was it a week ago when we tried to make homemade macaroni and cheese? This is a PSA for everybody who is trying to make their own mac and cheese.
So here's what happened, right? So we went out and we bought a bunch of stuff, and we ended up going to Costco, and Costco said that they were out of pasta, but then when we got to the area that had like macaroni, they had a ton of elbow macaroni pasta. So we bought like an 8-pack of this stuff, and like we're like, all right, let's like make one of them. Then we have like pasta for like noodles and cheese and stuff. That's like her go-to like lunch. And so we make it, and I'm like, well, I found this great recipe for like really good mac and cheese, and I've already got the noodles, so this is going to be really easy. The problem is that she doesn't drink milk, being lactose intolerant, so we don't keep milk in the house. But what we do keep is vanilla almond milk, unsweetened vanilla almond milk. And I'm like, well, I get, how bad could it be?
And that's what we'll put in coffee or something.
That's what we use in our coffee, all that kind of stuff. So, of course, I use it. I mix it all up. It's creamy. It looks really good. The problem, yes, as everybody's probably thinking, is the smell.
The smell hits you before the food.
You get like this vanilla smell.
It was so gross.
It's not great. I wouldn't do that. Now, if you had something else that wasn't vanilla flavored, if you just had like plain almond milk or cashew milk,
I would have tried oat milk
great.
Too, by the way.
Oat milk would have been really good.
I think that, because it's grainy, just like the noodles. Maybe that wouldn't be so bad.
It's not grainy.
Oat
milk shouldn't be grainy, but it could still have like a nutty like flavor and stuff to it without being vanilla-y. You don't want that sweet smell. It's kind of but yeah, no, it did not turn. She ate like a tiny little bit of it, and then
I could not get over the smell of vanilla coming from my mac and cheese.
Very kindly was like, I'm not doing this again. So I ate it all over the next like 2 days. I agree with you though, Mark. I'm a Kraft guy, Blue Box Blues.
I grew up on Kraft Mac. I think that was the first thing that I learned how to cook.
Easy Mac, I think, got us through college, when you could just like stick it in the microwave and create it. I think I ruined like a hot water boiler one time with macaroni and cheese in it.
Mark and Jocelyn just put out a new video, I think it was yesterday, that was the... what was it? Things to know before going to America, I believe, and they feature mac and cheese in one of their comments. So, mac and cheese week it is. Are we catching up on some of the chats here?
Yeah. I'm just taking a look. All right, so Ethiopian. So just getting back to that real quick, because Mark is saying that the best Ethiopian food is in D.C. So the next time we go to D.C., we'll have to check that out. We have a number of good friends in DC that we like to get out and visit. So always looking for an excuse. But Ethiopia is one of those places that we really want to get to. It's on our list of places within Africa. Well, we want to go everywhere, right? But within Africa, there's a few countries that are kind of high up on our list to get to. One of them is Morocco, Ethiopia, and then South Africa are kind of our probably 3 highest right now.
Yeah.
And the only problem with Ethiopia is if you're flying through American, the only way to get there on like Alliance Airlines is to fly from the U.S. I think all the way over to Dubai, and then from Dubai you can get to Ethiopia. So that's a little bit of a trek, but definitely a place we want to get to. I've been intrigued forever since high school when I found out about all the churches that they have like kind of sunk into the ground, kind of carved into the bedrock, which is pretty neat. So.
And thanks, Al. I believe I missed that question from Jocelyn. She asked where we were married in Tucson. Happy to give those details. We were married at a place called Hacienda del Sol, which used to be back in the day, back in like the 1920s, an all-girls school up in the Catalina foothills, and it was converted to a hotel resort. I want to say in the 30s or 40s, and has kind of been a guest ranch for a while. They even have horseback riding and stuff there, and there's 59 rooms. So because most of our guests were coming in from out of town, we were able to basically reserve the whole place, and it was such an incredible experience for us, of course, and hopefully all of the attendees of our wedding
Yeah.
too, to really get to know Tucson kind of on our own little ranch.
Yeah, so the cool thing about it is that, as she was saying, there's 59 rooms. I think we had 57 or something.
57
Like,
of
I think
them
57.
for
Yeah,
us.
so there were 2 rooms that were not rented out to the wedding party people. So I'd like to think that there are 2 rooms of very confused people. Like, why does everybody here seem to know each other? And than us, which was really cool. And, we kind of tried to keep everything pretty much in that one location. So that's where the ceremony was. That's where the reception was. That's where people dispersed to when they were done for the most part. It was a good time.
Yeah, so that was at Hacienda del Sol.
Yeah, and if you haven't been back to Tucson in a while, it's been around for a while, but it actually just went through a remodel in the last
I think
4
it was
years.
in 2016 is when it completed.
So like the last 4 years, and it's breathtaking. The rooms are phenomenal. It's all like artisan quality.
And you
like,
can get the old, historic rooms, I believe is what they're called,
Yeah.
that are in the actual old guest ranch and basically where the girls' living quarters.
Yeah.
And then they've done an entire addition that a lot of the addition rooms have spectacular views of the Catalinas.
Yeah, I recommend the edition ones. They're very nice.
Yeah, and they're
Although
very modern.
my parents stayed in the
casitas.
one of the casitas, which is more of an apartment type thing. It had like multiple bedrooms. It had a kitchen and everything. I think it was like the Hepburn one or something like that. It had a name to it. Definitely feels a lot more rustic inside that one, but it had a lot of good space and whatnot. So like my parents, little brother, and my grandmother, I think were all able to stay in that one thing. So that's a great option for people traveling with either multiple generations or having a bigger family. So it's pretty cool.
And Mark, you're saying that Delta doesn't do code shares or direct flights to Ethiopia. That actually, I believe, is incorrect. And the reason why I know this is I'm a big Delta flyer myself. My best friend works for Delta, and another friend of mine works for Delta too. And I believe, probably not right now, but in normal flying, there's a JFK to Ethiopia direct flight. I could be completely making this up, but I think I looked this up when you and I were looking at going to Ethiopia as an option in 2020. No longer, but...
Yeah, I don't know. All I knew is it would be much easier to get to Morocco, so we started planning more for Morocco, and that kind of went out the window as well.
Yeah.
I actually have been to Morocco one time back in college. When I was studying abroad in Spain, down in Sevilla, we, because you're already kind of down there, being in Andalusia, just take a quick ferry across, you can get down there, which is pretty easy and a cool way to get down there. You kind of see the Strait of Gibraltar and all that kind of stuff, which is pretty neat. I will say that the ferry crossing was much more turbulent than I expected. Lots of big waves. I think at one point in time they made it so everybody had to come inside because it was too dangerous to be outside on the deck. And you'd look out the windows and you'd either just see sky or you'd just see water. You never saw really a horizon because it was moving so much. And I think a lot of people kind of got sick because of that. Luckily I did not. Unfortunately, the only location that me and my friends could find to kind of hole up and wait, there were no seats, so we were sitting on the floor in a hallway that led to the bathroom. So we had a lot of green people running by us to kind of get to the restroom so they could take care of their business.
Travel stories.
But it was fun. I mean, I stayed out on the deck as long as they would allow us until they finally kicked us off, which is why...
Nowadays, you're such a photographer, you would have been like snapping photos the whole time too.
Yeah.
Seeing it all through a that
would have been fun.
But yeah, Mark and Jocelyn, I'm sorry that you guys are planning on going to Ethiopia this year and it was falling through. We were also looking at it very seriously.
Yeah.
I specifically want to see the churches that are built into the ground there. I've seen photos of them in a lot of travel media and thought it sounded so cool and looked stunning. There's also just a lot of
Well, there's a lot of
really,
biodiversity there,
right.
and I think that one of the things that we had heard about is that the density of the biodiversity there is like crazy, kind of like a rainforest. And there's I think like a crater or something like that that has crazy biodiversity in it that we're hoping that would be a cool place to go to.
In that specific crater, there's species. There's supposed to be species that only really exist there. Isn't that so cool?
And
Gotta love wildlife.
and theoretically, I think Ethiopia also has the Ark of the Covenant. Maybe that's the legend, at least, is that it's housed there in one of the religious buildings, and the mythos there is that it was gifted by King Solomon to, I think, the Queen of Sheba or something like that. And
What many people don't realize is that it's very heavily Christian in Ethiopia.
Well, it was the last Christian kingdom of North Africa to fall to Muslim.
There's our historian coming out. Derek loves to learn about ancient history. So Mark Finley is saying, I wish Delta would step up its Dallas flights. They only fly out of Dallas to a handful of places, not even to Chicago. So I would say the same. I wish they would step up their Chicago flights, but that's me just being selfish, because obviously United is a big presence here, and so does American. So Delta has focused its efforts in other Midwestern cities like Minneapolis and Detroit as a result. Yeah, it's interesting to hear about its presence in Dallas. I'm guessing it's also kind of the same logic that Dallas is a big American hub.
Yeah, my issue with Delta, and the reason why I don't really use it anymore, even though I really did like it when we were still dating before we got married and everything, I was more of a Delta person.
Well, we also lived in New York City.
And we lived in New York City at the time.
New York City is a huge Delta hub.
But
we lived in New York for 8 years.
Yeah, but because of Eliz having the family in Tucson, and so we were always flying to Tucson, it was a lot easier to go through American. So she had always had American miles and whatnot, like her entire life, basically. So slowly but surely, she kind of got me towards American, and now I like it. And if Delta was here in Chicago, I'd probably use it more, but they're barely here.
So Jamie and Matt, you guys live in Indianapolis, and I feel like Indy is one of those cities that all of the airlines have kind of an equal presence in. But tell me if you don't agree. That's the kind of thing that I've noticed about Indy, especially. So...
well, Jamie's saying that South Africa was her favorite and probably one of her top 2 countries.
Oh, that's so great to hear.
Yeah.
We want to go to South Africa, but when we feel like we can afford to splash out on a big, cool safari and go to Stellenbosch wine region, which we've budgeted out for that, and it'll cost us a pretty penny to do what we want to do in South Africa. So we're saving up for that someday to come.
Yeah, I really want to make it down there, but it also just takes so long to get to. Kind of like in Australia and stuff, where you really need to spend a good amount of time there in order to make it worth the long haul flight. Because I think you have to fly first to London and then down to Joburg or something like that.
Yeah.
Al is asking about good cities for street art. Long Island City and Chicago have some. Are there any other good ones, maybe in Europe? I will say that Glasgow and Scotland has a lot of cool murals and street art, so very cool there. You can't help but see it when you do it. When we were there, actually, we did a hop-on, hop-off bus type tour. The first day we were there to get our bearings of the city. Yeah, and you see a ton of them.
Also, I want to do an honorable mention. Actually, I would say it's not even an honorable mention. It's the best of all the ones that we've mentioned so far. Valparaiso in Chile.
Yes. Crazy amount of street art.
And beautiful
that's what it's known
for. It's not the safest city, and since Derek and I both speak enough Spanish to get around, we were able to communicate with the locals pretty well and stuff the whole time we were there. So if you don't have that ability, I got yelled at by a local in Valparaiso because I was
too relaxed. They basically were like, "You're gonna get mugged." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, because he put his camera and his phone on our lunch table as we were eating in the train station, and a local came up to him and
was
literally
just
said,
like,
"Your things are
"Stop."
going to get stolen. You need to put them away."
So,
and said it to us in Spanish, and thankfully we understood.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh no, lo siento."
And we had, at the time, lived in
Gracias.
New York City, so we were.
Yeah, we felt very safe.
We were urbanites.
Yeah, it didn't feel dangerous, but it's just one of those things, right? So, but very cool place. Highly recommend it. The streets are really cool. You just like walk down these alleys, and it's just narrow passageways with just like walls of street art. And it really is art. It's not like just gang tags or anything like that. It's really cool stuff. But for those who don't know, Long Island City in New York is a great place for street art. It has a place there that used to be like really well known as kind of a mecca for street art, which is
Bye, Mark and Jocelyn.
Oh.
Enjoy family movie night.
Bye, Mark. Bye, Jocelyn.
Thanks
Have
for
fun.
tuning in.
Yeah, thank you. I would say that LIC is really cool because they used to have an area called the 5 Points that is one of these. It was like a mecca for.
Ooh, sirens. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, so it was kind of a mecca for street art. It had a bunch of like artist studios and places like that, and it was just full of cool murals. And unfortunately, a number of years ago, it got shut down and kind of turned into luxury apartments or something. But because of that and because of that history, it's kind of maintained its place as a place for well-known street artists to come and paint murals on different buildings. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Matt was saying that Lisbon has really cool street art too.
Yeah. It's a shame that Mark and Jocelyn are heading out because they used to live in Portugal and speak so highly of it. And I know Matt and Jamie, you guys went on your honeymoon there and just fell in love with it. I think we have a lot of Portugal fans in this chat.
Yeah, no,
it's a country that neither of us have actually been to yet. Yeah. And we really want to go.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't make it there when I was studying abroad, but definitely Portugal's. Everywhere kind of is on our list of places to go to, but looking forward to hopefully making it to Portugal soon.
So Derek and I studied abroad at the same time, but not in the same place. Yeah. In 2009, so a long time ago. Yeah. But Derek studied in Spain, and I studied in England. And we would meet each other in different countries on the weekends. So we've gotten to go to a lot of the same places together, but unfortunately Portugal still isn't one of them. We're going to have to go.
As they say, I haven't been everywhere, but it's on my list.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark Finley. I haven't had any bad experiences with American Airlines, but I'm looking forward to Comfort Plus this summer. Also, Delta has the Airbus A220, which has wider seats.
And the 2-3 configuration, yes.
2+3, okay. Which is great because what I like about the 2+3 is that it allows you to kind of put the bigger roller boards up above on usually the left-hand side. As
well,
you're
the 3 and 3 is the best if you travel with carry-ons like we do a lot, and actually. Because I fly standby on Delta often, I have to pay attention to which type of airplane I am listing myself on if I can. Sometimes there's no choice. But if I can take an earlier flight and ensure that I am in a 3-3 configuration to one of the Delta hubs from Chicago, then I know that I'm going to be able to put my bag above my head and not have to gate check it. Because if I gate check it when I have a layover, I might have to check my bag all the way through to my final destination. But otherwise, I would say Delta's planes are really nice overall. I think I've flown on a lot of them recently, and I've never had a bad experience, whether they're the Airbuses or the Boeings. The A220 also has huge overhead compartments. Yes, totally agree. And it's really nice when you don't have to be shoving your bag, even if it's 22 by 14 by 9, international regulation size, into the overhead bins, because certainly been on planes where I'm like, this is supposed to fit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, my issue is that, when that happens, I mean, if you have status and you can be on the plane first, it's great. But I mean, to Eliz's point, when she flies standby, she's usually the last person on the plane. So,
Almost always the very last
if
person.
it's not 3 and 3, and it's a tight flight, then it makes it so that her rollerboard is less and less likely to make it onto the plane. So
standby strategies, guys, not all the things you don't think you have to pay attention to. But it's the same thing though. If you're going to be booking a flight that you're going to have a layover in general, or you want to make sure that your bag doesn't get checked.
yeah.
Pay attention to what the plane is and look it up on Seat Guru. Look up the configuration.
Yeah.
And that way, hopefully, you'll be able to stay connected with your bag the whole time.
Yeah.
So Megan Morris is saying, I don't mind American for domestic, but I went to Europe with them last year and they did not even have in-flight entertainment screens. What? That's crazy. I much prefer Delta for international. Megan, do you mind just telling me where you flew out of and where you flew into? Because I have never heard of that before for an international flight, especially to Europe. Like, if you were saying I went to Canada or Mexico, I would believe it a little bit more, but I still believe you. It's just shocking to me that they would have that. And is it that the entertainment was available if you had the app on your phone?
Yeah, I assume it was at least available in-app on the phone, because I know that they have that for a number of their flights in the economy section and whatnot. Is they don't necessarily have them in the seats anymore. They've been actually trying to, I think that's actually an American strategy, is that they're trying to take it out of the seat and move it into your own device, which I don't like because I don't have a good stand for mine. I guess I just need to get a stand, but I do find it to be a little bit annoying on American flights sometimes. But yeah.
Yeah,
Delta
I have
actually,
a pop socket on the back of my phone that at least works a little bit, but it's still not perfect for if you need to use your phone on your tray table.
Actually, so that just made me think of something, which is when we were at the Travel and Adventure Show here in Chicago.
Oh, yes.
We were walking around the floor and seeing the different vendors and locations, and there's like a certain section of the show that is all about like gadgets and gizmos and stuff that
travel gear
basically. And one of the places was they had this really interesting thing that was basically like think of a shower caddy, but it had a not for the shower, just for like stuff that you would like want to have readily available. And it's for if you are a window seat person, it hooks onto the window shade, and then you can like put your phone in it. You can put I think it had cup holders so you can put your drink on it. Like it's I was like, this is the most brilliant thing ever. Like,
but you have to know that you're going to be in a window seat.
Yeah, you have to book the window seat to use this thing.
Yeah.
I don't think you can be like, hey, do you mind, like, and reach over and stuff, unless it's like your wife.
Do you mind if I put my cup here?
Do you mind if I put my cup by you? But no, it was pretty cool. I was very close to buying one because we fly together a lot, and we just try to get the window seat whenever we can. So.
Okay, so Megan's given us an answer to my burning questions about that overseas flight. So she was saying it was a 767 from Philly to Budapest. They also did not even have anything on the app except for radio and 3 channels of live TV. No movies or on demand.
Wow.
I am floored. I have not really heard of that being a thing. We flew KLM from, I think it was Glasgow to the U.S. 2 years ago, and that was a surprise because the plane itself was really old.
There's no Wi-Fi.
And there was no Wi-Fi available at all, and I believe no plugs at the seats. And I've gotten so used to having at least a way to charge my phone on an international flight. That was a pretty big surprise to us. But I guess you never know what you're going to get, and it really proves why you should look up the Seat Guru information about your planes, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. I hope you were able to sleep or something, because I don't know what to do in that. Listen to music. I hope you had music or something on your phone. That sounds really rough. That is a long flight.
I will say that that's why usually I forget about this thing, and I think Eliz, you put out a video on things to do, or maybe you plan to do one on things to do before a flight.
Yes, I have put out a video on long haul flight essentials, but things to do directly before a flight. Like I have videos lined up to have to post about a week before a flight, a day before a flight, and the morning of.
Yeah, well, I would say the day before the flight, figure out what you want to watch on the flight, and if you have like Netflix or Hulu or whatever, download a bunch of content that could get you through the plane. I mean, to the extent that there's movies on a plane, I will always watch them on a plane. And what is weird, Megan, about what you're saying about the Budapest one, and I'm wondering if you booked it on American and it was a different, maybe somebody else was operating the plane. I don't know, but every time I fly American International a lot, actually. Europe, Asia, kind of everywhere. And I've always had movie access. But I'll always watch the movie on the plane if I can, just because I'm like, what cartoons are on? Or, what am I going to cry about today? I don't know what it is. I think it's the atmosphere, but I find myself tearing up.
And I flew in
glass of wine.
In the past year, I've flown only Delta to Europe, but I can say that the flights, so I've flown 4 times to Europe in the past year on Delta, and the flights to smaller, like the flights to their hub cities such as Paris and Amsterdam, the planes are typically the best ones. Mm-hmm. And then let's say when I went from Atlanta to Brussels, the plane was a little bit smaller than the ones that go to the hubs and a little bit older.
Yeah, I remember when we flew, I don't remember who we were flying to Manchester when we went to Wales. We flew in and out of Manchester, or into Manchester, out of London?
We flew American from JFK to Manchester.
And it was a 3 by 3. Yeah, it was a 3 and 3 flight. I was kind of like, we're going over the ocean in this thing? I was a little nervous about that.
We were fine, though.
It was fine. I mean, it's like the distance of going to like LA or something, so it's not a big deal.
Yeah. But I think we have to catch up here a little bit. So, said on-demand was only for domestic flights, which made no sense. Yeah. Especially based on Derek's experience with American. Because like we were saying, he flies that a lot. That's not what we typically find.
Yeah. So, Jamie, you're saying that you flew American for work recently and hadn't, for a few years since our wedding, and you're surprised with the lack of space, but the comparisons to Delta, which you guys get upgraded to a lot, so maybe it's similar in economy. Yeah, I'd say that they're largely similar. I think that probably almost identical in terms of space and whatnot.
I wish I could speak to United.
But Delta's great.
Because I feel like United's not getting any love on this conversation right now.
Mark is over a foot taller than I am. And,
yeah, Mark, you're very
so
tall.
He only
6'8". Wow.
I feel like our house was probably designed for you, sir. Because a lot of things, we have a lot of cabinets that are just like very tall, and we need a step stool at all times, basically, to get things. It's quite frustrating. It's hard to live subscale in a full-size world.
Yeah, but Comfort Plus would definitely be a good option for you on an airplane. No question. Hopefully you're able to find those seats every once in a while.
Yeah. Megan's saying that she always checks Seat Guru now, which is great. I really, Seat Guru is great because,
There's been times where
surprised.
Derek has been in like the Comfort Plus equivalent on American, been in row 10, I believe, and in a window seat, but there was no window. So if he had checked,
there's a seat 10A on, I don't remember which,
a specific American Airlines
specific
plane.
type of plane that American flies, and 10A should be a window seat, but there's no window. And I was flying, I think it was Chicago to New York. Or maybe it was New York to Chicago, but that's what it was. I think it was Chicago back to New York, or no, New York back to Chicago. And I was so frustrated because I should have had a window. There's no window. It was we were taking off like during sunset. I could see out of other people's windows that it was beautiful. I had my camera. I was so mad.
And Derek has
So
Derek
mad.
has his main Instagram account, Mr. Means to Travel, but he has another one called Means to Fly, where he posts all of his window seat photography. So,
Which I'm really behind in. I've got a lot of pictures.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't be
I've only-
promoting it too far and wide. But
Yeah, I haven't put a lot of posts on that one. But.
he's a big window seat fan, but so am I. So we fight over it.
See, but when she wins, she gets angry at me because she has the seat, and I'm just like trying to like take pictures, and she just gets very. She's like, "Get it out of my face!" I'm like, well, "You did this. You chose this."
Yeah, I just use my phone. Yeah, Megan, the 3-and-3 configuration over the pond was surprising.
Yeah, but drink 2 glasses of wine, go to sleep, wake up, and hopefully you're there.
Yeah.
Matt, I flew United a ton.
50 to 60 times, 2015 to 2017, when I lived in San Francisco. What questions do you have? I think we're just curious if you felt like the economy class, the room, the leg room was any different than on American or Delta. Then Jamie saying she flew United almost exclusively growing up in SF. Never really had any complaints until I started flying Virgin. Interesting, because I feel like everybody always talks about Virgin being a great airline.
Well, yeah, no, she's saying because Virgin is the best for domestic.
Oh, I thought I was reading it the opposite.
Yeah, she never had any complaints until she saw what is better.
Got it. That makes
Virgin
more sense.
Atlantic, and I've heard that the Virgin to Europe flights are also like crazy awesome, which is still Virgin.
We really enjoyed actually when we flew Emirates to Europe from JFK. That was a very cool plane. It even had some wood paneling in certain spots. And had really just cushy seats. So if you ever have an option to fly Emirates, that's a cool choice.
Yeah, Emirates was really cool, and it was an A350, I think, that we were flying, because it was stopping over in Milan, going on its way to Dubai. So you could buy basically a direct ticket to Dubai from New York. That it just had like the stop in Milan, which was pretty cool, and super cheap tickets when we did that. That was great.
Yeah. Mark Finley's saying doing Comfort Plus back and forth from Dallas to New York on an A220 in July and an A330 from JFK to Charles de Gaulle in Paris and an A330 from FCO back to JFK. FCO, is that, which one is that? I know this airport code. You'll have to write it in.
It's not
Frankfurt. This is gonna bother me. I wouldn't try that trip without it. Absolutely, especially at your height. Man, I'm 5'1". I could probably make it work, but not at 6'8". Rome, thank you. Yes, I always forget that Rome's airport code.
I never would have gotten that.
I remember looking it up several times for standby. I just couldn't remember which one it was.
Rome.
Rome. Hi, Karen Mack. Welcome.
Hey, how you doing, Karen? Yeah, so Emirates is amazing. Flew from DC to Dubai to South Africa. That's really cool. Emirates is one of those things I really want to try flying in like their suites, which are supposed to be really, really awesome, which I think the only way I would ever do that is on points somehow. So
yeah,
need to figure out how to get that done.
A friend of ours who used to live in Dubai, the one that we visited in China last spring, because he is a serial expat all over the world. He went from Dubai to Shanghai and now is in Singapore. Yep. When he lived in Dubai, he flew Emirates all the time and got status on Emirates and started getting upgraded into their amazing first class experiences, and he cannot say anything bad about it. He loved it so much. Yep. I think they have like a stand-up bar on certain international flights as well.
Hang out kind of thing. Which we've never taken part in, but it seems really nice. But yeah, so Emirates, so in terms of international airlines that I've really enjoyed, honestly, like when it comes to like the actual body of the plane, I really like just flying the domestic carriers like American, like because if I'm flying abroad for work, for instance, I'm usually going to be in business class, which means that I have like kind of the hard product of American, which hadn't, if you take the business class seats in American Airlines and compare it to like British Airways or Cathay or Japan Airlines, which I've flown in all of those. The American seat is a little bit wider, just a little bit more spacious, and I'm not a giant guy, but when you're sleeping in a little pod and your arms aren't like in like this, and you get to kind of, it's just a better sleep. So I really enjoy the hard product on like American Airlines, but I like the soft product, so like the meal service, things like that on the foreign carriers a little bit better. So if you do like Japan Airlines, I like to order like the quintessential what's the meal on the plane. So on Japan Airlines I got like a whole bento box, which was pretty cool. On British Airways I got like a whole like tea service, which was kind of crazy because it was like a whole high tea basically before landing in Chicago, where they brought me like a whole teapot like 1,000 tiny cakes and sandwiches, and I just remember I think I ate and drank it all.
I did not get to participate in this fanciness, by the way, everybody. This is a Derek exclusive.
Yeah, and the high tea thing was this never happens, but I somehow got upgraded to first class on British Airways, and British Airways, unlike the American Airlines and Delta and stuff, which typically only have 2 classes of service, like business class is the highest class on most of their planes now. They have an actual like business class and a first class. So when I somehow got put into first class, which I don't know how it happened because I got it but my boss didn't, which was I thought really funny.
I'm sure he didn't.
Each seat came with its own like coat closet. Like my seat had like a closet that I could hang my jacket into and stuff. I was like, this is amazing. Like now the seats were just like a business class on American. There was nothing like super special about them. But it was pretty neat, and the service was.
It's so interesting how the
phenomenal.
different airlines configure their flights to be competitive for business travelers.
And I will say that going through like the different lounges, that's the other thing that's different. And if you're ever flying and you have the option to get into the Cathay lounges, if you're flying through like an American Airlines type thing, and you get that through your status or what have you. Always go to the Cathay Lounge because they have like a noodle bar where they'll make noodles for you and stuff, and that's awesome.
Nummy.
Highly recommend it.
So Megan's saying she's saving up all of her Amex points for Emirates or Etihad first class.
Yeah.
Totally with you, girl.
Me too.
We were talking last week, I believe, about the Amex Platinum card. Definitely get a lot of good points, point accumulation with that one.
Yeah, lots. Turkish is also great. Huh.
We've never flown Turkish Air.
We want to go to Turkey though, so that's good to know.
Yeah.
We definitely want to make it to like Istanbul and Cappadocia and maybe even like the coastline and stuff, which would be really neat. Singapore Air is often ranked number 1, but I would prefer Emirates and Turkish Air. Huh.
You were trying to fly Singapore, right?
Well, when I went to Singapore, I flew Japan Airlines and American, and then Cathay back. And again, Cathay, like the seats weren't that great. I was expecting a lot better of a hard product from Cathay, but the soft product was excellent. Highly recommend it. And if you're doing the Cathay stuff, you get access to the Cathay Lounge in Singapore, in Changi Airport. And the Cathay Lounge there is awesome. They serve, because it's in Singapore, and like laksa is a thing. It's like a Malaysian peanut-based like broth and stuff. So they serve laksa noodles, which is delicious and phenomenal and highly recommended. So Changi Airport alone is just a phenomenal airport.
I feel like nobody ever talks about how delicious airport and airline food is. So this is an interesting conversation.
I mean, it's airplane food, right? Like the food on the airplane is never going to be like phenomenal, which is why I would say if you can eat at the lounge and the lounge has good food, you should always do that. Yeah. Over whatever you're getting in the plane. I mean, I know you love like on Delta getting like the sundaes and stuff, which I understand because like ice cream's ice cream and it's delicious.
You can only get the ice cream sundaes on Delta if you're in Delta 1, which is their first class. Which
we lucked out on when we got when we were going to and from Amsterdam because I mean the planes were not crowded because of obvious reasons. But yeah, no, the sundae was great.
Yeah.
They're like,
I'm
we
lactose
have hot
intolerant. I
fudge,
just
we
take the
have
pill.
caramel.
I just take the pill so that way I can have the
Yeah.
sundae because it's just it's part of the experience for me. It makes me happy.
Yeah, no, it's fun.
And
fun.
Karen Mack is saying she flew business class in British Airways last year from Toronto to London for the first time, and it was wonderful.
Yeah, no, it's great. I will say there's on a lot of the BA flights on business class, it goes in two directions. Either your seats will be you walk onto the plane and turn left, or you walk onto the plane and turn right. I unfortunately was on the plane and I had to turn right to get to my seat. And the thing about that is, so as business class, you board before the rest of the plane does. So before the economy class cabin does. And it's a little awkward because the British Airways seats don't have as much privacy to them. There's not like a side wall on most of them. So you're kind of like exposed to everybody as they get on the plane. And it's not that you're exposed to people, it's that everybody kind of like looks at you as they get on the plane. And I feel like they're kind of like judging you, like, oh,
you have to just
aren't
put
you
your
a fancy
sunglasses
person?
on.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm like, no, it's like it's because of work.
Yeah.
It's not my fault that I'm here and you're not. So I always
You're
feel
a
like
celebrity. It's okay. Just kidding.
I wish.
So Megan, yes, actually. So as long as I print out a boarding pass for Delta, which all my boarding passes when I fly standby just say standby, and seat unassigned.
Yep.
But I still have a record locator and everything like that.
Yep.
So I show it to the Delta Sky Lounge folks and give them my Amex Platinum card, and they wave me through.
Yeah.
So I've done that a lot.
Which is great.
And honestly, when I have bad luck flying standby, having access to those Delta lounges have been a huge lifesaver. Not only to get like really good Wi-Fi access in order to figure out what I'm going to do about my bad luck, or but also just to be able to have something to eat and great source of like infused water and stuff while I wait.
All right, just real quick, Mark is a musician, so he's going to log off and get some practice time in.
Awesome.
Thank you for joining us, Mark. It was really great having you here.
You'll have to tell us what you play sometime soon if you haven't left already. Let us know. But yeah, totally. This is a good time to get some practice in for sure.
Yeah, and maybe someday we'll have a moderator gathering. Yeah, we were a little bit surprised. It was funny because when all of a sudden I like looked at when we first got onto the chat, and I'm like, I had clicked on something and I saw that it had a lot more functionality than usual, and I was kind of like, Eliz, I think I can block people. That's weird. And then Mark brought up that he
we weren't
turned
realize
into a moderator.
we didn't realize we had gotten promoted until they let us know on the chat.
Yeah, that was funny.
Tuba, that's so cool. And your wife plays the trumpet.
Oh, that's awesome.
My dad played the trumpet. I don't know if he's still on.
Yeah,
but,
Al played the trumpet. He was in a Chicago cover band.
That's really
awesome.
cool that you have such you're such a musical couple though. Definitely go get that practice in.
Have fun.
Thanks for joining, by the way.
Yeah.
And yes, Megan, I am very aware of how lucky I am with my standby benefits. I'm not going to have them forever and ever, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, the cool thing is that she's really been...
I've been trying to use
She's
them.
really been using them over the last year or two since she kind of left her 9 to 5, which made it hard to use those benefits because she always had to make it back, right? And when you're flying standby, you might not always make it back. And maybe talk about what happened to you in France this last year and how long you were stuck.
Yeah. Let's talk about my bad luck flying standby.
I mean, you're
that
stuck
way you won't be as jealous.
You were stuck in Paris. Okay?
Yeah, I got stuck in Paris for 3 days by myself. So what happened was on the 3rd.
You weren't stuck on the mean streets or anything.
So my other friend that works for Delta that I mentioned, him and his wife had standby benefits too. So the three of us, and I introduced them, and they are married, and so I'm friends with both of them. So it wasn't as weird the fact that I tagged along with them, but we all decided to go to Europe last minute, last July, and specifically go to Belgium. So we flew on a flight that had 60 open seats on the 3rd of July from Atlanta to Brussels. And then coming home, I don't know, I think it was 5 days later or something like that, all of a sudden the Brussels to Atlanta flight canceled. And so all the people that had been on that flight got rebooked everywhere, so it kind of filled up all of the Paris flights back to Atlanta or back to the States, and it filled up all of the um, Amsterdam flights, which is Delta's main hubs. So basically, there were no nearby transcontinental flights to be had from a standby perspective. And I have a little bit more job flexibility. I can kind of work from anywhere. So, and I technically outranked them in standby priority order. So I let them fly back on the earlier flights, and then as a result, or on the earliest flights available. And as a result, I myself got stuck in Paris for 3 days because the next day, again, the Brussels to Atlanta flight canceled. And the same thing happened all over again. So basically, yes, don't feel too sorry for me. I was stuck in Paris, but...
I mean, you got to go see Versailles because of it.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like the end of the world by any means.
Yeah.
But it was certainly a lot more expensive than I had planned, because when you fly standby, if something happens and you have to stay an extra night, the airline does not reimburse you.
Yeah, you just have to find a
all
hotel
out of
and
your pocket.
yeah. So you had 3 extra nights at a hotel, but used Hotel Tonight to get good deals and stuff, and so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, and that's where I stayed. I was actually mentioning on the Walter's World live chat last night that I stayed at a really great boutique hotel in Paris last summer, and that was on that experience. The Hotel de Grand Homme, which is like the Hotel of the Great Man translated into English, and it was right across from the Pantheon, which, if you are flying into either Charles de Gaulle or Orly, the RERC is the train that gets you into the city from the airports, and that hotel is only like, I think, 2 or 3 blocks from the Luxembourg stop on the RERC. So it's super easy to get to that hotel. Plus, the hotel is very recently remodeled and just beautifully decorated. So I highly recommend it, especially if you're planning on going to Paris when all of this is past us.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
Yeah. So I know that it seems like it's winding down a little bit in the chat, but if anybody else wants to ask us any questions about travel or talk about anything else too, we're happy to. But one of the questions that we started the conversation with, and you guys can all chime in on, is there any, what is your favorite foreign
international cuisine? Yeah.
So we were starting to talk about what we've been eating lately right at the beginning of this, but let us know if you guys have any favorite international cuisines as well.
I baked French baguettes the other day. They turned out pretty good, I think.
It made me want to go to France.
I told her to just shut her eyes and eat the baguette, and she'll basically be in France. She didn't. It's not, but whatever. Did that. Did Belgian frites. We ate sushi. We've had Thai food. So, but we're looking for other things. I made tacos today for myself, not for her. But yeah, when you bake a chicken, you can do whatever you want with the chicken. So
that's true. Matt saying he likes I'm gonna not pronounce this right. Pastels de Belém.
Pastéis de Belém.
What are those?
I'm gonna look this up.
Tell us more. Not a type of food, but a great dessert. Cool. I've never heard of that dessert before. We definitely need to try it. It's so fun when you find really special dishes to a specific country. So Megan's saying French and Japanese, and any place with good seafood. Mussels in Brussels were great. Girl, I feel like you and I have the same flavor profile, because French food and Japanese food are 2 of my absolute top favorites.
Yeah, I mean, French food, escargot, delicious. And then you need bread to dip into the butter. So good.
Yeah.
Basically, snail is just a really great reason to eat butter.
And there's so many different types of Japanese food, too, that, obviously everyone thinks of sushi, But there's also great Japanese barbecue. There's ramen.
Yeah, ramen's really good and super filling. If you get like one of those giant bowls of noodles and stuff, really good.
We were just watching a special on Japan that is, I think, 6 episodes on Amazon Prime.
It's called Our Man in Japan.
And in one of the episodes, the host goes and does all the slurpy noodle goodness.
It makes udon noodles.
Yeah.
Which is really, I mean, it looks great. And it seems like something we might be able to make at home, so we'll see, maybe. We have a lot of flour, so we're trying to figure out things to do. We went to Costco, and Eliz was like, should we get flour? And I was like, I don't know what to do with flour, but sure. So we bought,
flour is not a normal purchase.
We bought like
in this
a
house,
massive bag of flour. Like a normal bag of flour is like whatever. And then we bought something that was like 6 times as big. And we got it home and then found out that we already had a small thing of flour that was full and never been opened. No idea when we bought it. And sometime since we moved to Chicago, I assume.
Yeah.
And so first I opened that to start baking, and we have used up that whole thing.
Yeah, Stamia's commercial-sized bag of flour.
Yeah, yes. And so we ended up using that, and that made like 8 loaves of bread, like, or something like that, out of the small thing. So we have an ungodly amount of flour still to go through. So if you have great cookies or pastries or whatever thing that we can do with yeast and flour, let us know.
Jamie is shouting out Southern Indian food and Thai food. I don't know. I know I've had Indian food, but I could not tell you if it was Southern or not. Yeah, it was not labeled
probably
one way
not,
or the other.
Actually, no.
So yeah, I guess probably not.
No.
So I'd be willing to go try some Southern Indian food with you at some point.
Yeah, Indian food's awesome, but I really, really, really like Indian food. But I realized when I took Eliz to our first Indian restaurant together that while I love Indian food, because one of my best friends growing up is Indian and I used to love eating at his house, I did not know what the heck we were eating, so I couldn't order for us.
This was in college because there's a really good Indian restaurant in Bloomington, Indiana.
Yeah.
What is it called? I don't remember. But he took me on a date there, and he's like, I love Indian food. We're going to have so much fun. And then we get
I'm
there.
Sure I
like,
sounded exactly like that.
Yeah. And I opened the menu, and I'd never had it before. And I was like, oh, what do you think I would like? And he's like, ooh.
I was like, the only thing I knew how to say was like tandoori chicken. Like that's the only thing I knew. Now I know better.
He was like, Mrs. Agnihotri. Help.
Rishi, what should I order? I think I was like texting Rishi, like, what do I order?
What do I like?
What do I like? Tell me what of your food I like. Naan. I knew I liked naan and rice and some sort of meat.
The perils of just, eating all the yummy goodness at your friend's house without asking questions.
And I agree with Megan when she's saying that Indian food is much better in Europe than in the U.S., specifically in England.
Yeah, we went to a really great Indian restaurant in London.
We've been to a few. But one specifically, one with our friends that live in London, and
it was right off of Regent Street.
Yeah, it was right off of Regent Street. It's considered one of the oldest Indian places in London. It's kind of haute cuisine. It's fancy.
It was delicious, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, it was phenomenal. Highly recommend it. Yeah. What have we been binge watching? We like comedy. We like watching like stand up on like YouTube and stuff. So we actually found a stand up like comedy channel on YouTube that we like called Dry Bar. It's an actual place in Provo, Utah, called Dry Bar, and because they don't serve alcohol, kind of people of all ages go there. It's more clean humor, it's appropriate for kind of all ages, but still extremely funny. Really good stuff, and a good kind of break from some of the more crass humor that maybe we watch more regularly. So it's been fun to watch all those. And I was actually, in terms of Netflix, I really like Altered Carbon, the new season that came out. That's pretty great.
We also started watching the new show on Netflix called The English Game, but we're not I think we haven't watched it in several days.
Yeah, the English game's good though. The English game is about basically the formation of professional soccer, football in England, and kind of its transition period from a club sport with non-professional athletes to professional athletes. And it's this guy.
And so it's based in the 1870s. And the creator of the show is Julian Fellows, who many of you guys have heard of because he also created Downton Abbey.
Yes.
And he's very famous for his storytelling abilities. And so the actual, I knew after hearing that he was the creator of this show that it was going to just be a gripping period drama
about soccer, which is kind of cool, which is not her thing. But it's fun to watch. I don't
dislike soccer.
It's fun to watch, and
or football.
But it's kind of cool. And it's kind of the different. It has a lot of stuff around like class dynamics and kind of what was happening to the working class during that time in the 1870s in England.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting.
Sounds like Matt has already gotten through the English game.
And liked it.
And he loves dry bar comedy. Sounds like we're watching a lot of the same things.
Jamie is saying that she'll dig up a croissant recipe.
Oh,
Thank you. Yeah, send that to us.
you.
I would love to make some good croissants.
We have a lot of flour, so
yeah.
Any sort of recipe that involves flour that anybody likes, send our way.
Yeah. And that London has the best Indian food outside of India. Yep. Dry bar comedy is amazing. Yes, it is. Karen Mack. I was in Scotland many years ago and kept going to the same Indian restaurant because I did not like the Scottish food I found. That's probably a fairly common thing because Scottish food is not the best. I mean, it's just not known for like its cuisine.
Yeah.
You kind of go there and you can do kind of like a shepherd's pie, you can, like a lot of those heavy type things with like a lot of potatoes.
We ended up going to a tapas restaurant in Glasgow. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. The fancy one?
Nice one? It's kind of schwanky.
Yeah, that place was really nice. It was really good. It was actually on a day when the two local football clubs were playing each other, and so I think there was which was a big rivalry. And
I was actually interviewed for a podcast where the podcaster asked me what my favorite country was, and I said Scotland, and then he asked me pretty soon after what country has the worst food, and I go, Scotland.
But I love it so much despite the food. I mean, the last time we went to Scotland, we went to a place, we had haggis, we did
have haggis.
I mean, it's not great.
I maybe prefer haggis to blood sausage if I had to pit them against each other.
I also had blood sausage. I think I got like the Scottish sampler.
Hot poll in the in the live chat. If you've had both haggis and blood sausage, let us know which one you prefer.
They're saying somebody's username was Hot Poll.
Oh,
and
no.
That's quite the name.
I'm starting a really trendy poll right now in the live chat, hopefully.
Wait, so dry bar, Scotland food, English game. Season 2 is in talks right now. Interesting. Have you watched Tiger King? Okay, no, we have not watched Tiger King, but that is what everybody is talking about right now, and I would watch it. All about Joe Exotic and all that stuff. It seems pretty interesting.
Yeah, we had it kind of summarized to us by a good friend of mine. About Joe Exotic and his fabulous life, but I suppose we would watch it if we felt like we were really left out, but it's definitely not the type of show that would be our number one choice, I think. Maybe Derek would love it.
I'd watch it. Why not?
What he still hasn't done is started watching the Hallmark Christmas movie marathons.
Yeah,
no. He is just a die-hard Hallmark Christmas movie stan, really.
Yeah. So, Karen's saying that haggis was the best thing she had in Scotland.
The bar is low.
Okay. If anybody here's from Scotland, I really apologize because it's a beautiful country. It's awesome. Home to an ambrosia-like liquid called Scotch. Although I'm not into the peaty scotches personally. I know that the Walters are gone, but they like their Scotch. At least Mark does. I have a small little bottle of Scotch that I bought when we were in Edinburgh last. It's from some Scotch distillery that makes their own. They like barrel aged and mix their own scotches and stuff, and so I got one from them that I need to drink when I have friends over who can enjoy Scotch, because not all of us do.
And I'm gonna give a shout out to one place in Scotland that actually does food well. Is the Isle of Skye. There are a couple of Michelin star restaurants in the Isle of Skye. You will need, if you're going there, especially during high season, you're going to need to
make a
reserve in advance, and it is expensive.
We did not go.
We did not reserve in advance because we were dumb and ended up eating, I think, a lot at our hotel, which our hotel had a decent enough restaurant, and we were only there for, I think, a night or two.
We did a whole trip through Scotland of a Highland tour, and I can say that I don't remember the food almost at all, except for eating a lot of fish and chips. I did eat a lot of fish and chips. Eliz was getting very frustrated with me because I kept being like, "Yeah, let's get fish and chips."
Right. Sometimes it's hard to go wrong with fish and chips, I suppose.
Well, it is hard to go wrong with fish and chips, so why not?
Darlene, Derek has not yet watched Hallmark Christmas Movie Marathon.
Which is what Matt is saying you would be ashamed of me for not watching. But you know what? I just haven't had time.
Yeah.
So, see where everyone's again.
Jamie was saying that that is not the part of Oklahoma that OU is in. Just want to make that clear, but did not watch the in Tiger King where the Joe Exotic is.
Oh.
Yes, that's what she's clarifying. Because Joe Exotic's, I believe, based in Oklahoma. Like his whole zoo thing.
I do like that on Joe Exotic's Wikipedia page. He is a politician / country music artist, because I think he does have country music out there, and he ran for president once or something like that.
So I've been to Oklahoma. My grandmother grew up there, and I just want to give it a positive vibe right now because I feel like we divulged into the deep depths of Tiger King before it, and I've actually been to a state park in Oklahoma in the northeastern part of the state and had a family reunion there, and it was beautiful. Had a great time with all of my cousins too. And there's definitely lovely parts of Oklahoma. So if anybody does travel there, check out some of the state parks. Underrated.
Yeah. All right. But I think that we are caught up. And so if nobody else has anything to talk about.
Yeah, I hope. So we're doing these live chats Thursday nights at 7 Central, then Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central. And Sunday mornings we'll have big coffees in our hands instead of evening teas. So hopefully you guys can all join us then too. We'd be delighted.
That's when more of the Europeans join, so that's always a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, last Sunday we had a couple people from London on, which was a blast. And just a few other friends of ours who are big travel fans. But what we're just aiming to do with these live chats is to keep connected, especially to folks all over the world while we all are stuck at home.
Yep.
I think it's really important because, we, at least in Illinois, we're going to be in our homes at minimum until April 30th.
Yep.
Most likely longer if we had to guess. So I hope all of you guys out there are staying healthy and happy during this time, and I think happiness can come from connecting to people.
Yeah, and why don't you plug the video you're going to be launching tomorrow?
Oh yeah, I also have another video coming out tomorrow on my channel where I interview a good friend of mine who is in New York City right now, and I'm talking specifically about her experience with COVID-19
quarantine
and what she's seeing in the city. And I also coming out in the next few days too. Have one with my friend in Seattle and another with our friend who was in Argentina but urgently had to come back to the States, and what Argentina was like and her trip home. So watch out for those on the channel coming up. They're all fascinating interviews. So I'll be promoting those too really soon.
Yep.
All right. Hope to see you all on Sunday, and thanks for joining this week.
Thank you for joining.
Cheers. There you go.